Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51% a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, with Fox News in the headlines over multiple claims of sexual harassment and misogyny, we talk to British work and organisational psychologist Angela Carter about what companies can do to clean up their act when it comes to sexism. Also, how an economic downturn is redrawing gender lines in the Egyptian workforce.
Unstoppable.
And meet Angela Lee, the 20-year-old mixed martial arts supremo from Hawaii, who's creating a buzz across the globe. But first, and in recent months, a constant stream of revelations about the American broadcaster Fox News has dominated headlines. Last July, Chief Executive and founder Roger Ailes, who's since died, resigned in a hail of sexual harassment suits and allegations, some of which have been settled. Then in March, the New York Times reported that host Bill O'Reilly and 21st Century Fox had paid out some $13 million American dollars to 5 women in exchange for their silence on allegations of harassment. As one former anchor said, the organisation's culture was steeped in intimidation, indecency and misogyny. But sadly, despite being 2017, such attitudes still prevail in a number of companies. So what can an organisation do to rid itself of sexism? Joining me now from Sheffield University in the UK is British work and organisational psychologist Dr. Angela Carter. Thank you so much for being with us, Angela. With a record number of women now entering the workforce, why are we still struggling with corporate attitudes that resemble something from the 1960s?
Yes, it's a shame, isn't it, Annette? There are loads of evidence that there are many women in the workforce, but unfortunately you come up to senior levels, whether it's leaders or managers, there really are not that many women that want to do those roles. In my world, we talk about a model that's called attraction, selection and attrition. And if you follow that through, that means those roles aren't actually attractive to a lot of women who don't want to work in what they consider to be rather a macho world. They'd rather do other things that suits their values and their needs. When they get into the selection process for jobs like that, there are a lot of biased attitudes and problems around those selections. And then finally, in terms of attrition, this is often called the leaky pipeline. Women leave fairly early, the career is not set up in the way that suits the way they want to live their lifestyle, or they just really want to do other things. So you put all those things together and it doesn't make a very attractive package for women to want to move their careers forward in.
Angela, what actions do companies need to take?
Well, I think there's several things they can do, Annette. I've got a bit of a 5-point plan, so if you bear with me, I might tell you some of those 5 points. I think the first thing is that this is cultural, but it's also company specific, and not every company is the same as others. So probably the first thing that any company that has an interest in raising women to the top, and if they don't really have that interest, it's not going to work, is it? The first thing they need to do is really monitor what's happening to women in their workplace. Where are they achieving? Where are they not? And find out what the barriers and blockages are on the way. Is it about the whole workforce wanting flexible working? Is it about the career paths aren't working very well? Or as I said earlier, are the jobs just not attractive? So I think the very first stage is to find out what it's like at home in your organisation and what the actual problems are.
So Angela, tell us a little bit more about this plan.
So the next part of the plan really is to set some goals that you want your organisation to achieve. You want to have 3 women on the board in the next 12 months, for example, which will be a good way forward because you're not having one token woman put into a difficult job. So setting some goals that can be achieved and celebrated will be the next step. The third step, which I think is critical to start stopping the bad behaviour you're talking about, is to have senior male leaders in the organisation to be champions of women's development in the organisation. So they are role models, they're modelling behaviour they want all their colleagues to follow in the way they work with and develop women. The major problem you're talking about, really, the bad behaviour problem, I think is a senior issue of leadership. What I would say there is that it's very important that leaders, male or female, just call out that behaviour and just say, this is not acceptable in this workplace. This can be backed up by training and development, the advantages of having a diverse workforce, etc. But I think until we actually start addressing very carefully, no, that is not acceptable in our working culture, these examples that you're describing will just carry on.
When you talk to managements, Angela, do they acknowledge it as being a problem?
I think some organisations do. I think some organisations generally want to understand how they can get more women into senior positions. But actually gaining that senior level support, the third part of my plan, often is difficult. And I think until you go through that strategic barrier of organisations wishing to engage women at the highest level, you're not really going to get very far, because you won't have people calling out bad behaviour or other activities associated with that.
With more women in management, albeit in relatively fewer numbers, is this changing things?
I think most definitely. I mean, I think it's rather difficult to get involved into a gendered conversation about leadership and management. We are leaders or we are managers. And there might be slightly different styles between the genders, but, you know, women are expected to be pretty tough and pretty macho in the workplace. Clearly, there are some behaviours nowadays that are very appropriate to the workplace. We don't work within one organisation. We work across chains of organisations. We need to have collaborative relationships across those relations. Those are really important skills and attributes that women have and can bring to the workplace. And these need to be valued in the sense of this is what this organisation wants to do. And some organisations can do this very well. So, for example, you'll see in various healthcare organisations which need to be cooperating very much across the whole of their organisational chains where they work. Women are making exceptional leaders in those particular situations. So it's about valuing what women are bringing to the leadership party, so to speak, and how those behaviours are really important to break the fact that actually I think a lot of men don't like working in a competitive situation either.
Dr. Angela Carter, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. To Egypt now, where ongoing economic hardship has resulted in an unexpected outcome, with women pushing gender boundaries by working in fields traditionally reserved for men. Catherine Viette explains.
In Cairo, a food truck isn't an unusual sight, unless it's being operated by a woman. Maha Mustafa serves burgers to hungry pedestrians in the heart of the city. She says women are capable of doing the same jobs as men.
I see that today. Women can do everything in all different fields. They're ministers, carpenters, butchers, and guards and homemakers, and they work and have children. And I felt like women can do anything.
As for grinding up the beef that goes into a patty, typically it would be men chopping and mincing the raw meat. But behind the counter is Roeda Hosni, one of the few female butchers in Egypt.
My sons are helping me. We're all working hard like men. I taught my sons how to be butchers, I taught them well, and I go and buy the meat and bring it here.
Many women working in male-dominated fields say economic hardship forced them into non-traditional roles. That's the case with Fariel Khalil. Her marriage ended when she was 17 and she had a young son to care for. It was seeing a woman driving a taxi that made her think she could do that too. She went to driving school and 20 years later she's completely at ease behind the wheel of her big rig.
I wanted to be able to drive professionally to prove that women are capable of doing anything they want to do.
Now, the National Coalition for Women is working to help women enter the workforce and succeed.
We're focusing on economic empowerment to create productive women in various fields, whether they work in recycling, carpentry or art. And we're focusing on how to make them succeed and market their products and how to give them the skills they need.
With the country's economy still on shaky ground, it's likely more women will look for work in non-traditional fields.
And finally, she may be only 20 years old, but she's already punching well above her weight. Angela Lee from Hawaii has become one of the hottest prospects in mixed martial arts, while also inspiring a new generation of young women to take up the sport.
World champion, unstoppable, Angela Lee!
20 years old and going strong. Angela Lee wrestled her way to stardom as the world's youngest mixed martial arts champion.
Martial arts has given me an incredible amount of confidence, you know, self-confidence to just have an opinion, to not be afraid to speak my mind. It's taught me a lot about respect and about humility as well.
Nicknamed the Asian Ronda Rousey, Lee says she wants to fight for gender equality and women's rights in a sport largely dominated by men.
There wasn't really a female role model for me to look up to or emulate. I think that's why I'm training so hard and I'm working so hard to become that female role model.
Last year, Lee became the highest paid female teenager after signing a 6-figure contract with one championship. For Asia's largest sports media property, Lee is well worth it.
She's articulate, she's talented, she's beautiful, she's young, she's inspirational to youth, she's inspirational to adults, she's inspirational to women, she's inspirational to athletes, and she is a phenomenal ambassador for the sport.
Half Korean, half Singaporean, Lee was born in Canada and raised in Hawaii, putting the spotlight on martial arts worldwide.
And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page, that's France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments coming in. So until our next show, bye for now.